Hi, this is Amy Mott with Clover Patch Sanctuary, and you're watching our Bunny Education segment of the day on November the 12th, 2012. One of the things that are commented to me mostly on our shelter and our shelter practices is our very unique organizational skills, which I'm sure are not unique. I'm sure a lot of shelters do many of the things that we do. And so today's education segment is on organizing your shelter. And I apologize in advance if this is quite boring for individual bunny owners, but there's always the potential for individual bunny owners to one day create their own shelter. And that is a very wonderful and honorable and labor of love thing to do. So we're going to focus on shelter organization. As a few of you know, primarily my business is professional organizing and staging. So I was able to very luckily combine my organization skills as well as my organizational business, and running Clover Patch Sanctuary. It was a wonderful thing. I mean, I was able to do the two, and they just came together, and the product is kind of what you see behind me, which is a very organized shelter. And I'm going to tell you how I do it. And you're welcome to take any advice I give or just say, oh, blah, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But it works for us. So a very important thing is whatever skills that I teach you today, that you really find what works for you. The way we do things is not always the way that's the right way. So there's a dozen or more right ways when you are organizing. So the first thing I like to tell everybody if you're organizing a new shelter, the most important thing you do is your bookkeeping. Your bookkeeping, whether you do it paperless or whether you do it all electronically, it's very, very important. We are 90% eco-friendly. I'd love to be able to say we are 100% paperless. That's an impossibility at this time. We do have to print some things. So when we do print, we always print on 100% recycled paper. And the product is the book. Every shelter should have a book labeled by year. If you're a very large shelter, you're going to have probably 2 or more of these books. But with our charter of just 30 rabbits at a time up for adoption, the 2-inch binder works great. Now, the 2-inch binder is going to start off, and probably I should move back for this. So let me move my chair and let's move back a little bit. And there we go. The 2-inch binder, which works for us, it always begins with, for every year, it begins with the table of contents, which the table of contents just lists off, in our case, again, what works for us. We have the general inquiries, which we get usually online. We have our events, voided contracts and or voided foster contracts and events. We have a section for surrenders that would come into our municipality. Again, it's what works for you. If you are allowed to take in surrenders or whether you have to get the surrenders from your municipality, you have to check in your area to see what is allowed. In our area, it is allowed for us to take in surrenders, although we do only take in from our municipalities. So they do go there first for their isolation period, and then they come to us. We also have our mailing and our email list, our bunny transport list whenever we are involved with any transports out of our town or out of our county. We have a section for pending contracts and fosters. For our foster contracts, our adoption contracts, our vets and veterinary info, which is very important because a lot of people will seek you out to ask you about vets. And so you want to have any information on vets that you currently use in your shelter on file. Again, whether you do it paper or electronically. Then, of course, adoption contracts, which our adoption contracts are done online. But we do print them off on 100% recycled paper to keep in the big book, because one of us may be on the corporation laptop doing something and we need to look up something very fast. So we print off one copy for the big book to always make reference to. And I will say they are done alphabetically. So you can look that up, and we always alphabetize them by the owner's name. And then, of course, The shelter, different municipalities, any information you would have on the different municipalities in your area, information that's kept on them. Also, boarding clients. We do have a boarding contract, and so anybody that boards with us, they fill out a contract one time if they're going to continuously board with us, and that's kept on file. And then, of course, we keep our Amazon wish list or any of our wish lists that are out there. All of that is contained in a book labeled 2012. Now we do switch over this book every year for any of our city and state and federal paperwork. It does go over into the next year. So we do pull that out of the book when we retire this book at the end of the year. In 2013, we'll have a brand new book. The only thing that we leave in the 2012 book is we leave the current adoption contracts. We leave all the fostering contracts, everything that's voided, everything stays in this book. So, whoops. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So we do leave everything in the 2012 book that needs to stay in 2012. So that's the first thing. That's good record keeping. Let me move this back up. The next thing I want to talk about is sanitizing. The most important thing you do in your shelter is keep it clean. It's a very small thing that is a very big thing. So whenever you are cleaning your shelter, you need to use products that are, if at all possible, animal friendly, especially around your cages. You do not want anything that can be harmful to your animals. Always remove your animals from their habitats before you clean them. You can create all kinds of problems if you don't. As far as your floors, things like that, you do need to use something that is extremely sanitizing. Again, that is your animal's health. Everything has to be clean. So even if you have to put on scrubs and step in a bleach bath before you walk into your shelter to keep it clean, do it. Keep your shelter clean. The third thing I wanted to talk about was shelter ID. Some shelters do this. I know a lot of shelters don't. But it's very important when you're using Pet Finder. Of course, you have the option of assigning your bunnies a shelter ID. I encourage you, please do this. It's very, very important, and you can always input that ID into a later informational database. It's so very important to keep a shelter ID. So you can also label each individual habitat, which we do. We use the white circular tag labels, and every habitat has that particular animal's name and their shelter ID. And when that animal is adopted, we remove that tag, throw it away, and when another animal comes in, we label it accordingly with a brand new shelter ID. Also very important, do not repeat your numbers. If you're on animal 1 or animal 1000, do not repeat your numbers. It can mess up your databases. Another thing that I like to talk about with shelters is movability. Whenever you're organizing your shelter, you want to make sure that any human that visits your shelter is able to move through that shelter freely. So do not, under any circumstances, crowd your walkways with your shop vacs, with any type of anything. Don't crowd your walkways. People need to be able to move freely through your shelter and through your walkways, and so they can have fun, visit with the animals, and you do not want the insurance liability of somebody tripping over anything and possibly getting hurt. And you don't want that to happen to you either, so make sure you always have movability through your shelter. Temperature control is something that I always encourage shelters to be cognizant of. When you have bunnies, your shelter needs to always be at a comfortable temperature of between 65 and 75 degrees. Anything under 60 degrees is too cold. Anything over 75 degrees is too hot. It's too hot for the humans, and it's definitely too hot for the animals. So keep your shelter at a very nice between 65 and 75 degrees. And honestly, for me, I'm hot-natured. 75 is too hot. I know I freeze my rescue partners out of here, but I like to keep my shelter right at about 70 degrees. It feels good all year long, and the bunnies love it. The next thing is get into a routine. When you run a large shelter or a small shelter, it doesn't matter. You get into a routine of cleaning your litter boxes, of your feeding schedules, of your cleaning schedules, all very, very important. So get into a routine. We have certain days that we clean our litter boxes. We have certain days that we clean the cages. We have certain days that we have triage Sundays, which I'll speak about in just a minute. And it's very important to stay with that routine. Your bunnies' hay boxes need to always be fresh. They always need to be able to have unlimited amounts of hay. And in our situation, we change our litter boxes out every 4 days. So the alternating days, we fill up the hay boxes with fresh hay. So we have a very strict routine, and everybody that works with me knows that I follow it down to a T. I don't care if somebody's sick or it doesn't matter. We have a routine. We stay with the routine. It can only help and benefit the bunnies. So you have to have a routine for your shelter clean. We do have a clean out Sunday, which is where we intensely clean the shelter. All the cages are intensely cleaned, the cage bottoms, the sides, the floors, even the walls. And we do that once a month, which is a very intense clean Sunday. Every other time we are doing touch-up cleanings, and we always keep the habitats clean, especially in the bottoms where the rabbits live. But so yeah, that is our routine. Again, you find what works for you, okay? And the next thing is the triage days that I just mentioned. We just had triage Sunday yesterday, which works great for us because we literally go around to each habitat with a laptop computer, and we have an Excel spreadsheet that we are able to, we put the animal's name, their shelter ID, we weigh each of the rabbits, which is very important for every shelter to have a scale, because you need to be able to monitor your rabbit's weight. Always, 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 whether you're a big shelter or a little big shelter or little shelter, you want to be able to monitor this, because if you have any sudden weight gains or sudden weight losses, just with humans, it can raise a red flag. So you do want to keep up with that. So get a scale. Triage Sundays work great for us. We clip nails, we weigh the bunnies, we check their ears, we check their teeth, we get a general assessment just of each individual bunny. We input it into our Excel spreadsheet, and we do that once a month. It works great for us. Some people can, they'll have like physical notes they'll write, or they put it into a database, which both works great. I mean, we do that on a database, so we can just print it off, and we're able to access that anytime we need to speak to a veterinarian about a potential health problem. The next thing is vet records. We like to keep anything that a vet gives us by the health of our rabbits, and they do come in paper format. So again, sorry, 2012 book. Sorry about that. It's morning. Give me a break now. The 2012 books where all the vet records go. Anything we get, which would be the receipts, the procedures that are done, and we also input that into the Excel spreadsheets of any surgeries that were done, anytime we treat for ear mites, anything like that, if a bunny is deemed sanctuary or not, that all goes into our database. The other thing that I think is really important for all shelters to kind of implement is the habitats. The habitats in shelters, I know we all get overwhelmed at times, but it's very, very important when you have multiple bunnies and you're running a shelter. You have to watch your habitats. Bunnies can jump very high. They can escape. They can jump over into their friend's pen, and if you're dealing with a male or female, you could have in-house babies. Not a good thing. So you want to make sure, if at all possible, that you have some type of tops on your cages to keep the unspayed and unneutered bunnies from hopping over and having a party while you're asleep at night. So it's very important to kind of have that in your mind. A bunny that you wouldn't think would jump can probably jump if it wants. So you just have to be cognizant of that, and none of us want in-house babies, and we do spay and neuter all of us as fast as we can. But you know, all shelters face this problem. It's kind of a little hidden secret of all shelters. I mean, it's happened to all of us where, you know, we've had an escape attempt or an escape in the middle of the night, and we start mass panic because we come out into our shelter and Bunny's running around loose, and who knows what female he's gotten to in the middle of the night. So if you just from the get-go have tops for your habitats, this can be extremely, I mean, it can almost be eradicated. So we do encourage that. We do not have any cages any longer that do not have tops. So we've had no pregnancies, so no breakouts either. The next thing is label everything. Very important to label everything. If you have a pin cup, label it, pin cup. If you have a storage container for your eating hay, label it that. Your pet bedding pellets, label it. Everything needs to be labeled, needs to be properly labeled. That way there is no confusion. If you have a giant Rubbermaid trash can that says hay only, no trash, then you never have a risk of your hay getting contaminated. So label everything. So because you're not the only ones that are going to be in your shelter. You're going to have visitors and you want everything labeled. The next thing, which is kind of an organizational thing, it kind of moves into my organization and a little bit out of shelter, but I think it's so very important, and it does combine. When you're choosing the colors for your shelter, we all want our shelters to be pretty and painted. Neutral colors are very soft colors are always preferable. The bunnies don't care, but the humans do. And when you go into a place that has very soft, wonderful, neutral colors, it makes you feel relaxed. And when you are relaxed, the animals are going to be relaxed. Bunnies are the ultimate prey animal, and we always say kind of stick away from very hostile colors. A hostile color, for instance, is yellow. Yellow is always considered a hostile color. So not to insult anybody with yellow shelters, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying that, you know, when you pick your shelter colors, you always want to pick colors that are very wonderful and neutral and soothing to the humans. It brings forth that relaxation, it brings forth that kind of just warm, comfortable feeling, and the human can relax and spend time with the animal. Okay, that's it. Please, I wasn't insulting anybody with bright colors. It is an organizational thing that we learned in our organizational training. Colors do make a difference, so wasn't insulting, just giving a little organizational tip. This is Amy Mott, and I'm with Clever Patch Sanctuary, and you've been watching our bunny education segment for the day. Hope you have a great week, and please remember to keep on the bunny side of life.